Now we will begin with the dailies on the Daybreak Show, and of course, like I said, we'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper. Here you have it. In case you don't have a copy, it's important that you pick one so that you can have an understanding, I would say, insight on some of the major stories that we have today. Now, below the nameplate there, you would see one of the stories that are so glaring there is about 2023. North set to pick PDP ticket as Southwest leaders demand chairmanship. You also have Nigeria's debt profile hits 35.4 trillion naira. Stamp duty. Malami writes 36 governors, says no recoveries. And that's on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story says Nigeria's free fall continues as Nigerians rush to hold dollars. The rider there says $1 sells at 565 naira. That's outrageous, if you ask me.
Right.
I mean, 565 naira to $1. Then what are we talking about? We are talking, you know, how that Nigerians will now have to suffer to buy or to do transactions internationally. That's what it means, because your naira does not have the value to, you know, to purchase certain things for you. You also have another rider there, says government officials, elites in rush for forex. Citizens opt for foreign goods at all costs. Companies spent $55 billion on foreign consultants and workers. Below the nameplate there, beg your pardon, below the pictorial, you'll see victims of, should I call it an attack, or I would say friendly fire, or to call it a mishap. I don't know what exactly to call it, but it's tragic. And you have how fighter jet killed locals in Yobe. That story is saying quite a number of people, you know, have been affected by that. And the Nigerian Air Force is saying that no, it's not responsible for that. And if that's the case, then what exactly happened? Talking about the dollar to naira, you know, exchange going and skyrocketing. It's really, you know, recently I did a story on textile in Nigeria, and one of the major reasons that they have raised is about, you know, this forex, how that businesses globally are not able to compete, you know, because of high cost of production, and then one of them is this issue of forex, you know. So I think that is something that it's very important we look at it. How can we crash the price of dollar? How can we bring it down, you know, in Nigeria?
It's terrible indeed. Just yesterday, somebody called in from the U.S. and was asking how much is naira to the dollar, and then they told him 500 and something. I said, okay. It now seems some of these Nigerians in diaspora are buying this naira at that rate and saving up in that account. So I would say this has become, you know, another means for people to actually hoard money as well, with the way the situation, the naira and dollar thing is going on.
Really?
The change have also complained about how this has affected their businesses, and people have lost jobs. Even though this is going on, we still see some of these activities going underneath. You know, we still see people actually doing these exchanges.
Really, really sad. I think we need to do more in terms of exports, and that's very important in, you know, bringing down the price of the dollar. We don't want to see it, you know, soaring, just keep soaring uncontrollably. All right, now we will be looking at the next paper.
Okay, let's look at the Nation newspaper. Right there at the top, we have Ondo borrows to pay wages, says Akeredolu. We also have Nigerian airstrike kills 10, injures 20 in Yobe. Right on the other side, we have public officers toll ESTA code allowances for review. Inflation drops to 17.01%. We also have why we seized Odili's passport. And the big headline there is UNICEF attacks scare 1 million kids from school. We also have there parents keep children away in fear of abduction. Presidency warns on Yoruba agitators, IPOB alliance. And below there we have Lagos Ota road repairs for completion. We also have Kano cemeteries filled up. Lawmakers seek creation on new grounds. The one that actually caught my attention right there is the big headline which says UNICEF attacks scare 1 million kids from school. This is because already the COVID-19 pandemic has already hampered, the way our educational system works. And with this issue of insecurity, a lot of abductions, parents are scared to keep their kids in school, particularly those in the boarding schools. So
certainly this will happen. This, I would say, is one of the consequences of what we've been seeing. Education seems to be under attack because of the rising spate of attacks and killings and abductions in our schools and all of that. And let's not forget the impact of COVID-19 in itself. So the attempt, I would say the effort of government to, increase the number of out-of-school children by withdrawing children from the streets and all of that is sort of being hampered. And so we hope that we'll see something done immediately, maybe declare a state of emergency maybe in the educational sector, because like we've been saying, that you cannot have a society grow without having people educated. So it's very, very important and worrisome. Yes, several efforts have been made, the school feeding program and all of that, have encouraged more and more children to attend schools. But again, there's a bigger problem of abduction. Nobody wants his child to be abducted from school. People are barely, people are barely trying to survive. And so, you can imagine that some are not even able to pay the school fees. And now they are sending the child to get education, and the child is abducted, and there's a ransom is being demanded. So it's something that people wouldn't want to, dare. So what it takes to get our schools safe, well, I'll leave that. It's a responsibility of government to ensure that happens. We've been talking about the Safe School Initiative. Only God knows what happens, the impact of that, at the moment. So we need schools to be safe so that children can go back to school. All right, let's take a look at our next paper. Talking about the Guardian newspaper this morning. And the lead story there says, "We will judge you by the company you keep." Federal government warns Southwest agitators. You also find the writer saying Buhari to address UN General Assembly on Tuesday. Gbajabiamila denies comparing IPOB, Yoruba Nation agitators, with Boko Haram ISWAP. IPOB not terrorist organization, says Ohaneze. You also see Speaker has lost touch with realities of the present situation, says Afenifere. You also see 65% of Nigerians question country's continuous existence as a nation. That's according to a report. You have Independence Day. Youth announce nationwide protest, list 9 demands. These are some of the stories. And then, I'm kind of finding one of these writers intriguing. When you say IPOB is not a terrorist group, so it now makes me to begin to think about the definition of terrorism. What does terrorism actually means? If we say IPOB is not may not be having the same ideals with Boko Haram and ISWAP, yes.
It looks like they have similar tendencies.
I mean, someone who tortures people
And people are
and intimidate people and make life uncomfortable for people. What do we call that person? We have the Eastern Security Network that bear arms now, isn't it? And they give orders and they insist everybody must follow that. And if you don't do that, your life is at stake. We've had several threats, from the same group. So I don't know what exactly it means to say IPOB is not a terrorist group.
We need to look at this. The government needs to really look into this IPOB situation, because already it's getting out of hand. The sit-at-home order they've been giving, and people are scared over there to go on with their businesses, to come out to go on with their daily lives.
And of course, if you take a look at the definition of, terrorism in the act, providing for terrorists and all of that to take care of that, you could see the definition there. So I don't know what exactly or how exactly we are to describe IPOB, other than a terrorist group. You have also DMO alerts on defaults as debts hit 35.5 trillion naira. The rider to that, Nigeria faces sustainability challenge if we don't grow revenues. You also have FG's share of debt stock increases to 83%. Loans from China estimated at 1.4 trillion naira. At the very bottom of The Guardian, you'd see the stories. ECOWAS meets today to decide next step on Guinea crisis. Jonathan yet to join APC. Nabena insists, and you find orderly on EFCC's watch list. Immigration tells court. Akwa Ibom governor signs anti-grazing bill into law. Food prices defy inflation control measures despite rate decline. These are some of the stories on The Guardian this morning.
Our next paper for today will be the This Day newspaper, where up there we have DPR to exceed 3.2 trillion naira revenue benchmark, adjusts to 5 trillion by year end. We also have Okonjo Iweala named among Time 100 most influential people in 2021. We also have military airstrike hits Yobe civilians in error. And the big headline there is Salami, with debt service to revenue at 98%, Nigeria's borrowing unsustainable. And we also have down there, no recoveries yet on stamp duty, Malami tells governors. We also have the FIFA graces Aisha Buhari Cup tournament. Asks federal government to sell off 900 billion debt assets to enhance fiscal position. Nigeria's public debt grows to 35 trillion, says DMO. Basically, these are some of the stories right there on This Day newspaper.
All right. Quite interesting stories. The story about the military airstrike hitting civilians in Yobe State, it's appalling. We've had these things over and over. We've had them a couple of times, whether as a result of friendly fire or what exactly. The other time we heard about how military aircraft opened fire on its own troops, in this same country. So what exactly is the problem that we are not yet fixing, or we are finding it difficult to really tackle when it comes to, being on the front there? It's appalling. The lives of innocent civilians is at stake here, and it's not acceptable at all.
Indeed, it is.
It's not acceptable. So let's move on to the next paper. Talking about the Punch newspaper here this morning, and the first story at the very top there. Bread, cereals, others push food inflation to 20.30%. find that on page 19 of the Punch. You also have below that, Nigeria piles up 2.36 trillion naira debt stock in 3 months. That's on page 19 as well. NIS says orderly on EFCC watch list as ex-governor sues immigration. You'd find Southern secessionist not different from Boko Haram ISWAP. That's according to the speaker, Gbajabiamila. Even though that we've heard a disclaimer there that he did not, likened Boko Haram to the secessionist, groups in the south, talking about IPOB and the Igbo Hos and his cliques. You have also below the nameplate there, National Assembly defends Buhari's $4.9 billion loan plan. APC PDP clash over debt. The rider there, all countries engage in deficit financing. We are still within borrowing limits. That's according to the Senate. Buhari's loans for budget financing, not for looting as done by PDP, says ruling party. You also have below that, APC borrowing to finance corrupt lifestyles of its leaders and their cronies. That's an allegation by the People's Democratic Party. Below the pictorial is the story of the reconstruction of Ota Abeokuta Road and how it will cost 56 billion naira, according to Fashola, the Minister of Works and Housing. You also find Oshun open grazing law, defaulters risk 1 year imprisonment. Beside that, reps demand probe of customs killings in Oyo communities. At the very bottom, Abiodun eyes FG's 83.5 billion naira loan for Ogun Cargo Airport. Others. Gunmen invade Lagos farmhouse, kidnap businessman, shoot passerby. You also find the story on lecturer sues Sanwo-Olu CP over COVID-19 test demands. Demanding 65 million damages. Now, these are some of the stories on the Punch this morning. Justification for the president's request for a loan by the National Assembly. We've seen the backlash, or I would say the criticism that followed that request. Of course, as usual, Nigerians always say, well, our debt profile is quite very high. And the explanation has always been, well, no country can grow without borrowing. Right. No country can invest in capital infrastructure without borrowing, and that has always been, the explanation.
Experts have also said if these borrowed monies can be adequately utilized in the manner they should be, then it's fine to borrow, because even developed countries all over the world borrow as well.
So the big question is, where is the money going? Can we guarantee that all the monies that have been borrowed have been channeled into good use? And has it helped Nigeria's revenue? And if that's the case, then we can say, well, the borrowing is justified. But if we have not been channeling those loans into proper use and ensuring that it boosts, revenue for the country, then definitely the answer is no. I don't know which of the divide where you stand, but again, this will be a discussion for another day.